A double overtime loss to put Michigan back at 500 on the season. All right, welcome in following the Michigan-Florida game, which has gone final 106 to 101. No, not talking about the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons, talking about Michigan down in North Carolina, taking on the Florida Gators, and Juwan Howard's team unable to make enough plays again in a close game and come out on the short side, on the wrong side in these one-possession games late. This would have been a very nice win for Michigan. Last week when they lost to Oregon, that would have been a nice win in overtime. Instead, Michigan's sitting there, falling back to 500. And, they're looking up at the teams in the top 25 and might be looking up at a lot of teams in their own conference. And you start thinking about, I know it's a little bit earlier, they were talking about Joey brackets and everything, that, Michigan needs this one more than Florida. A little bit too early for my taste before we even flip the calendar, before we even get into the new year to start talking about, Joey brackets. But, thinking about the NCAA tournament and the resume, you need to find some wins, and, finding them when you're playing outside of the conference against a team that, could be Florida, could be there. Listening to Seth Greenberg was like, buy Florida stock. He was all about the Gators and the SEC. And hey, look, he's watching a lot of college hoops. He likes the Gators. But Michigan had a chance in this one. They had 20 chances. That's usually how it goes when it comes down to a game that ends up going in double overtime. I'll walk through it a little bit. We'll get you the scores, talk about the schedule, where Michigan sits, and all of that as we watch it. Michigan went back to the starting lineup that they had for the majority of the year. Last game, Terrace Reed was coming off a really nice game in Iowa, and then he went to the bench, and Will Cheddar came in. But it was really the starting five for Michigan tonight that played the majority of the game. Maybe that was something, because if you told me, and if I was writing out a story on this one, saying that Michigan ran out of gas against Florida in the double overtime, I think is accurate. And so also accurate when you look at the minutes logged by the Michigan players. And now it all gets kind of jammed in there when you start talking about, hey, Michigan just can't execute late in games and get it done, which, I agree with. And I'll get a little bit into that a little bit more. It was game number 12 on the season tonight for the 6-5 Wolverines down in Charlotte, North Carolina, facing the Florida Gators in the Jumpman Invitational. Back there again, the four schools that started it all when it comes to Jumpman. Juwan Howard back as head coach for the second game for the Maize and Blue. And U of M led most of the first half as Doug McDaniel has a game-high 15 at the break, but the Gators get a heave from a couple steps over half court, a 30-plus three-pointer off the bank. So Michigan was down by one at the half, but this game was, it was kind of foreshadowing how the rest of the thing was going to go. I thought Michigan, came out in the second half. They were passing the ball well. They were cutting, looking for one another, and it had them up 9 points just 5 minutes into the second half. But then, the Gators would come back. And midway through the game, and midway through the second half, they tied it up. Then they had a 3-point advantage with 7 left. But then here it was. It's ended up being a one-possession game. They're tied with under 6 left, under 5, 4, 3 to go. That was the theme. Florida had a chance in regulation with 1.9. You could have talked about, because they ended up on the possession before shooting a 3, and Michigan could have fouled, but they was 19.6 I think left, and you're not going to foul at that point. But Florida ended up getting an offensive rebound. If you're really heads up, you could have talked about, hey, let's get a foul there. They did not. I can't kill them on that. You can. if you want, because you have to know time and score, and you would win that argument, I think, with most people and everything. But then Michigan comes back in overtime, and they had a last shot with Namari Burnett. Now Burnett, you could also say, hey, he could have gotten in the lane. He might have been able to go all the way to the hole. Could have passed the ball, but hey, he did a little shake and bake and step back, 23-footer from the wing, and no good. So he makes that. You say, hey, nice job. That's your shot. That's your go-to shot. Get a better shot. Get another time and score there. That's kind of a theme with Michigan as well. Time and score, but then you got into double overtime, and as I looked at it, let's see here. You get the first couple. It's 3 minutes to go. It's tied. So, like it has been. And then, the Gators drive and they get a call. They make their free throws. And then Michigan, this is where they ran out of gas with just under 3 minutes to go. Namari Burnett, he was blocked on an isolation. The Gators come back. They drive to the hoop. They get a layup. Burnett comes down. The shot clock's running down. And he tries to make an off-balance shot that was no good. And then the Gators come down. They get a layup. T. Will misses a jumper, and then a 3-ball finally from Florida connects. That was the dagger with 1:18 to go. If I'm looking back at this tape and I'm really cutting it up, there's a lot of probably film that Michigan can show and say, hey, look at you guys, man. You were setting each other up. Look at the cutting. Look at the passing. Look at the offensive rebounds. Really nice job. Nice execution in a lot of areas for Michigan. But then playing just their 5 starters, they barely played anyone off the bench. And hey, the 5 guys that got them there, Michigan needed this win. I don't have a problem with that, but they just couldn't execute in that double overtime. Florida, they couldn't guard Florida. Florida was like, we're not shooting it from outside. We are taking it to the hole, and we are either scoring on you or you're going to have to foul us. And that's what Florida did repeatedly over and over. And that's why they won the game. Michigan, when they got down to things, isolation's fine. You get Doug McDaniel in an isolation and let him go. You get Namari Burnett and Olivier Kamwa, the 1 and 2 options for Michigan. But at some point, screening for your guy, rolling, passing it around, cutting, setting some guys up, working it around. You can't continue as much as Michigan did and really rely on isolation to just give the ball to somebody saying, go get us a bucket. That's an issue. And I think overall, if you're saying what's the issue in Michigan and why they can't win these close games over and over and over again, well, you start saying execution with, however it is, 1 possession game under a minute. You gotta help one another out on offense, and you have to be able to guard. And there were some times that they were able to do some nice things, but not enough, obviously. And they come up on the short side. Now that's how I saw it. Sitting here watching the game, there'll be a lot of people that say, "Well, this is on the coaching staff." And at this point right here, I can't disagree with you saying it's on the coaching staff. There's been enough games here. They're the ones putting the plays out there. They could, change some things up. And you've seen Michigan at other times have the ability to run some sets and run some plays, but they don't do enough of that in crunch time. They don't run enough plays. And if the play is, let's give it to Doug McDaniel and just let him go. Let's just give it to Kamwa in the post and just get out of his way. All right, once in a while you can do that, but that's not Michael Jordan that you're throwing the ball to every time. And McDaniel, you got to let him get a touch, but you got to run some plays. All right, I say that. I've said it, and that's where I'm at. We do have some feedback we'll take and see where the people are at. Yeah, here we go. We still can't win close games. Nothing new. That's true. That's from Dune Edan. We've got some football fans out here. OT was having fun with that game until that wasn't fun. Need football. Can't take this. Yeah, when you lose a game like this, Michigan Go Blue saying, Burnett, terrible shot. Yeah, I would say back-to-back shots when it really counted. And Burnett, did some nice things in this game, but he was going ISO. He's not Bernard King. Just throwing the ball and get out of the way. But with 2 minutes to go, they're ISOing him and on back-to-back offensive sets. And one, he gets blocked. Guy measured him up. That he was sitting on that step back that he had. And then they let the shot clock run down, and he tried some off balance. That's not the shot you want, obviously. There. So I hear what you're saying. Uyghur, talking about John Beeline, built something incredible, and Juwan Howard has completely trashed it in less than 5 years. Harsh, but what am I going to say? As we sit here today, Juwan has done some nice things, but sitting here talking about, defending him, right now. They need to turn it around. They need whatever you want to say, gut check, all of that. Don talking about the NIT. It's not premature to talk about the NIT, with this team. I didn't think they were going to make the tournament heading into the season, and then the first 3 games, they made me change my mind the way they played in the first 3 games. But since the first 3 games, they've changed it back over and over again. And, these close games, the Oregon game, that was a close game, very winnable, obviously, for Michigan, just not able to. And this is the repeated pattern. They can't win close games. We repeat ourselves. You repeat yourself because it's true. That's it. Don said he thought Michigan's issue was defense, but it turns out it's also offense. Tonight they couldn't guard Florida. Their game plan, or certainly when it got into crunch time, they said, take your guy, the Florida guards. They went over and said, hey, here's the ball. Take your guy and drive him to the lane, and you either score or you get fouled. And it doesn't matter who's breaking down this game. That is what it was. That's why Florida ended up winning it. Repeatedly, to the lane, basket, to the lane, fouled, free throw, layup, post, to the hole. Over and over again, and Michigan couldn't stop it enough. Andre's looking at some of the rebounding numbers in a double overtime game like this. I'll look at some of them for you, see what they ended up being there for you. Andres, I'll take your word for it. 106, 101, double OT. Let's see what the final rebounding, and Florida, looking at some of the numbers coming into the game, they were one of the best teams in the country offensive rebounding, and you could see it, man. They throw it up there. They got, you say they got 5 guys crashing. They don't need 5 guys crashing. They got a front line, a big front line. And when the ball goes up, these guys are crashing. And, they did do a good job. You could see that on the glass. Florida had 54 boards in this one to Michigan's 43. Yeah, that's getting beat on the glass. You are right about that, Andres. Let's look at some of the numbers in this one. Doug McDaniel, incredibly entertaining from Doug McDaniel. He's a jet. He's quick. He's a shot maker. He's a lot of fun. But I'm looking to see when it was crunch time. We just didn't get a whole lot. I think Doug McDaniel wore down in this game. Taking this 5 minutes after the game in this double overtime game, I think McDaniel, they needed more shots from him, more playmaking ability from him. But 31 points, 8 boards, 4 assists from Doug McDaniel. Terrace Reed Jr. did a lot of nice things. Had a nice block in regulation. He had a nice, a couple nice drives. He had an and one, making the free throw, which was pretty pivotal to keep this game alive and going. A lot of nice things there from Reed Jr. 16 points, 5 boards, and an assist. Maybe some things to work on there. If we're looking for the positives, why not? Let's look for some positives here. As well. Olivier Kamwa, there's a lot of nice things. I mean, he can score. There's 2 things that I don't like about Olivier Kamwa: his passing and his dribbling. I like everything else that he does. He plays hard. He goes after the offensive rebounds. He can fly in an alley oop. He can post you. He can drop step. He can hit one right outside the lane. He's got a turnaround outside the lane, and he can shoot the three. All nice things. Don't put the ball on the floor, and don't, he's not very good passing. So I'd like to see a little bit better when it comes down to that. TW2, who gets banged on a lot by Michigan fans, and at times for good reasons. A lot of nice things from TW2 in this game. I like, he plays with confidence. It just doesn't always translate for him out there. But, if he plays like, I will take the performance from Terrence Williams II like he played tonight for the rest of the year. And, Michigan will do well if they can get the kind of output from what they got from their captain tonight. Now, Namari Burnett did some nice things, but also it looked like he ran out of gas a little bit, especially in that double overtime of those back-to-back plays. 10 points, 6 boards, and an assist. Did I mention that TW2 had 14 and 7? I do think I did. The bench barely played. Jalen Llewellyn, I don't know if they played in the second half. Will Cheddar came in, had the ball, it looked like he wasn't ready. Like, they threw it up top to him, and he got the ball tied up, and it was like he went to the bench and never saw the light of day after that. I don't know if that was a motivational thing or the 5 guys were just playing really well. That would be my first question to Juwan if I was down there in Charlotte in the postgame. And then Trey Jackson, it was kind of the same way. He came in, he didn't look like he was ready either, and he went to the bench, and then it was just the 5. And, okay, you're trying to win a ball game down there, but then you're like, okay, you get into overtime. Man, these guys have played a lot of minutes. Then they get in there. I'm going to see if I can get the minutes. They don't have the minutes on that. So I'll have the minutes on the Maize and Blue review. I'll post that box score that I get from Tom Wyrot. You can see it in there right underneath this broadcast on the Maize and Blue review. Join us. So it's the best time to do it. Join the Maize and Blue review right now. Why would I say that? Well, there's a lot of reasons. You've got Michigan in football. You may have heard playing in the college football semifinals. All the coverage leading up to that game. Recruiting. You may be interested in recruiting. National Signing Day tomorrow. We got you covered there. Everything that's going on with the transfer portal. You notice the other 3 teams in the college football playoff already have players, at least one player, out of the transfer portal on their team. Michigan does not. So following the transfer portal, big deal. Following National Signing Day. And, oh yeah, Christmas is coming up. What is it? Sunday. The greatest gift after a couple Rose Bowl tickets and air and flight and reservations out there in California on the beach and those Rose Bowl tickets. Besides that, number 2 that you would want to see in your stocking, besides those tickets to the Rose Bowl, would be a year-long subscription to the Maize and Blue review. Go to Michigan.Rivals, and we'll see you over there. You like how we talk basketball after the game? We're talking all day, all night on the Maize and Blue review. All right, let's take a little bit more on the feedback, and then we'll look at that upcoming schedule. Poster, formerly known as Andres. Oh, that's right. He's right. They did get out-rebounded. Defense allowed too many straight-line drives. Help defense needs to improve. That's from Michigan Go Blue. I would say that is spot on. I didn't mention the help defense. Getting in front of your guy, I mean, you got to stop him. Sure, a guy can beat you off the dribble once, but at some point you got to, to beat him to the spot, turn him a little bit. Don't make it. It's like they were what you're saying, straight line drive. Turn him. Move him. Don't just let him drive the lane like that. Well said. Don says individual results mean little when the team continues to lose these games. Yeah, sure. I'm just talking about it, yeah, it's a big fat L. It's a long flight home. It's disappointing. Another loss, close one. That's the story. They fall back to 500, ran out of gas in double OT. But yeah, after all the carnage and everything else, and we're just sitting there, yeah, Terrence TW2 played a nice game. Doug McDaniel, nice offensive, here and there, the different spots from guys. A lot of nice things. But look, you're not playing. You don't want to get to the end of the year. Oh, there was a lot of games where they, did a lot of nice things, just never won a ball game. One of those close ones. GAM, Doug needs another guy who can get something off the dribble from the outside. Too bad Poole, Hardaway Jr., or GR3 aren't walking through that door. Thank you, Don. I get this sentiment. I'm ready for Houston. Houston is where the national championship for college football is going to be played. So, yeah, we're all ready for Houston. All right, let's look at that upcoming schedule. That Jumpman, I didn't realize this until I was watching the game, that they have the teams that were there last year there this year, and they have the women's teams, and then these 4 schools, Michigan, Florida, of course, North Carolina, where MJ went to school, and Oklahoma. These were the 4 schools that were first in with Jumpman. So it's like the original baseball Hall of Fame, members. These are the first 4 in. All right. Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, and Oklahoma. And, I like it. They have the women tonight, and then tomorrow it'll be the Michigan and Florida women, and then the North Carolina and Oklahoma men for the Jumpman. And so that's how it went down, if you didn't know it. Let's check that upcoming schedule, brought to you by the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football and basketball, which you can hear right here or watch on the very feed that you're watching right now. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That means tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we will see you. Signing day. It's like Christmas and your birthday all in one day. Everyone is excited for it. I mean, right now, you need something to do before New Year's Day. Tonight, you had a basketball game. Tomorrow, you've got signing day. And then, enjoy Christmas, because then it's game week. Get pretty fired up about that. All right, the upcoming schedule. Michigan beat Eastern, and then they lost to Florida. Disappointing, because, you're thinking you could build on something. Beating Iowa before that, beating Eastern, if they would have beat Florida. Talking about ifs, now would have been nice. But now they got to come back, and they play now, not this Friday, right? The following Friday, they get a big Christmas break here, the Wolverines do. And then McNeese is in on the Friday, the last game of 2023 for the Maize and Blue. And then they'll start out the Big Ten part of their schedule in the new year, hosting Minnesota on Peacock. But the Jumpman Invitational was not to be tonight for Michigan. They lose it 106 to 101. They fall back to 6-6 on the season, and they got a long time to think about this one and practice, and then, enjoy the holidays and come back and get a, what do I call it, a must win against McNeese, a game that they should probably win. But no doubt disappointing when, you can get a moral victory here or there, but you can't have them all the time. Like, Michigan, is it a point? It's a very small one. Like you would say, if this team went out there, didn't look like they played hard, and just got wasted off the floor, killed, run off the floor, you'd be like, this is they play. It's something. I'll give you again. It's it's a win the game, lose the game scenario, and you have to win a lot more, or at least more, than you lose in college basketball. You get to the very easy, obvious things. And then you can say, Well, there are some nice things. Is it a nice thing to say that they're competitive and close in games and just can't close them out? It's something. I mean, you can't. I don't know. You're not hanging your head. I don't even know what you say about it. It's just that's what it is. But at the same time, while you're saying, well, that is something, it's also something on the negative side. You can't get it done. Being able to win ball games in crunch time with, 5, 4, 3, 2, a minute left, that's basketball. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the going to work Pistons. They won the NBA championship in 2004 and then came back and went to the finals, almost won it in 2005. Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, the Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, that group. You know how many games I would watch the Pistons and, they're down 7, they're down 10 in the first, they're down 5 after 3, they're still down 5 points with 5 minutes to go. You know what they did? They flipped a switch with 5 minutes to go and they executed and played hard on both ends of the floor and they almost always prevailed. Man, they played well together. Why do I say that? Because you watch the first 40, 3 minutes of Pistons going to work basketball, and you say, this team is like a 500 team or worse. You watch the last 5 minutes, the championship team. That's a team that, gets canonized. A team that has guys going into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, and that's the pros, and this is college, and, it's 2023, and I was back in 2004. But that's how I'm feeling. Thanks for watching. Talk with you tomorrow, National Signing Day. We'll talk about the Michigan football team and the recruits that they are able to get signed on the dotted line. The 2023 Michigan football recruiting class will be minted tomorrow. We'll talk about how they did. Thanks for joining us. 106-101, Florida wins it in double overtime.